What's going on, beautiful people? You guys been asking for this video for a while, and I recorded it, but then I realized that this topic is far more complicated than I initially realized. So I'm basically gonna make this into two different segments, maybe three. There's a lot of different moving pieces into this, but at least for this first one, I'm gonna speak off of my experience and my experience just on being female to male, because the entire thing is completely different from being male to female. It's entirely different. The rules, regulations, how certain states handle the situation, it's a whole different beast, basically. At least when it comes to like the initial approach and stereotypes and things of that sort. Anyways, with that being said, I just noticed that my camera is also on one bar, so I'm gonna try to be as efficient as possible in this video. So anyways, throughout my entire athletic, okay, my camera actually did me dirty real quick, so I'm just gonna keep going. Throughout my entire athletic career, I played numerous sports. I believe I started with soccer, I did tennis, I did basketball, I did baseball. High school was football and wrestling, right? So when I first socially transitioned, my sport was basketball. That's actually how I started transitioning socially, was because I wanted to try out for the boys basketball team, but I couldn't do that if I wasn't, out. And so that whole process happened. I actually didn't make the basketball team, but nevertheless, it was one of my greater memories and experiences, especially something that helped propel me in my transition. Then I started playing football, which was the longest time span that I had for an actual athletic experience. When I did football, it was a lot happening at once, because it was when like I said, socially was transitioning at the more beginner stages. I was also starting my hormone replacement therapy, aka testosterone, which is me being injected self-administered injections of the male-dominated hormone that gives them all of the hormonal good stuff that you typically see in men, more so the masculine seeming features, facial hair, muscle growth, oily skin, etc., fat redistribution, all that stuff. So with that being said, I was a lot more timid to approach certain training techniques, engaging with other guys. Also, something to note is that in high school, I basically went to a PWI, a suburban town, for school. So racial components also played a role into why I was more timid to hanging out and pursuing more of a physical, competitive interactions with the rest of the guys. But nevertheless, it all rerouted to mainly the portions of me being trans and being of color. That was very intimidating for me. So I always thought to myself, it was part of a psychological component that led into physical, where it was like, I'm born biologically female, now I have to compete with guys. I mean, I've always competed with guys, but like now I have to be somewhat conscious of the biological disadvantages that I have, which is not necessarily seem to be the same thing as a male that is transitioning to a female, because they're known to have significant difference in terms of skeleton weights and muscle building and da. So no one really talks about how for trans men there's such a disadvantage. They like to focus on trans women and how there's particularly seeming as a extreme advantage. So I always kept that in my mind whenever I went to competitions or something like that. I'd be like, oh, you're born biologically a girl, so if you lose, blame it on that. But something to note as a athlete is that you never want to think about that stuff. It's always, you want to focus on your trajectory as an athlete and getting better in, it's you versus yourself at the end of the day. So that's something I had to get past as an athlete. Another thing that I experienced a lot was taking care of myself in a hygienic manner. Like you guys know, since I'm trans, born biologically female, I had breasts, a lot of, not too much breast tissue, but enough for it to be uneasy and just uncomfortable. So I wore binders. Mind you, I'm playing football, so there's a lot of hard hitting, there's a lot of sweating, there's a lot of, contact. So having something restricting your chest throughout all this when you're already pushing yourself to the limits, your lung capacity is already, not the best in high intensity moments. So wearing the binder on top of that restriction was just a key killer, I guess, to, safety. And honestly, for comfortability, I would want to wear the binder as much as possible. But wearing a binder before practice throughout the day of the course of school, and then going to practice, having large amounts of sweat from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And then, like I might remind you, my school was like an hour and some change away from my home. I also have to walk home after that, take another bus. So I had a binder on for nearly, I'm not going to do math, but maybe let's say 17 hours of the day, and it's covered in sweat and I smell, but that wasn't really computing in my head. Then, all the stickiness afterwards, it's hard to take it off as is. That was just a lot. And I'd do it all again the next day. And I wasn't the best at cleaning my binders either. So it would just stick. And the whole cycle would repeat until maybe one of these days someone had said, you smell a little questionable. That's just a nice way of saying it too. No one actually said it to me that way. But so not only was I damaging my ability to breathe, but also my hygiene. But, as a trans man, especially at that time, all I wanted to do was just fit in and make a seamless transition. So one thing to note for others that are in the same position is to please let yourself breathe. If not, there's other binding techniques that could, lighten up the load when it comes to, the restrictions when it comes to breathing and taking care of yourself more properly. I could also put some, I don't know if that still have links to it, but there's an undershirt type of binder that could be a little more useful, or even so, even though it might be triggering to some, maybe a sports bra or something of that sort, just to make sure that you're still being able, or being kind to yourself and your body, and also being able to be more aware of the space that you're sharing with others. And also, I was able to be in the men's locker room, which was very liberating. It was very liberating, and I was very appreciative of that. But because of that, of course, I can't take off my shirt like the rest of the guys. So I would isolate myself to the end side of the locker room. And since I was younger, when I went to camps, I always taught myself how to change with clothes that I already had on and put a new clothes on top and switch it out, seamlessly. So I would just use that method, or I would go to one of the stalls and change that way. And that seemed to work out, but mentally, emotionally, it was like, man, I wish I just had top surgery, because then I could just whip this off, put a new thing on. And mind you, when you're an athlete, you have literally 10 minutes at most to get changed from the transition from school time to practice or an actual game. So I had to be really quick with everything and just be very self-aware of the space that I'm in and the amount of things I have to get done. And that was just very taxing onto the mind. But I would say my teammates in front of me majority of the time, I would say they were 99% very much comfortable with me, who I am as a person, and my choice of transitioning, because they all were aware of who I was or who I am. So that made no surprise for them. But obviously here and there I would hear conversations about how someone was talking poorly about me transitioning or just being transgender, but that I never paid too much mind or care to them because I'm just that type of guy where I don't care about what someone says, because 5 years from now, who are they to me? So yeah, I hope you guys are really appreciating that I'm trying to talk fast and give as much insights as possible. Also, I had my coaches did not want to, have that be the main frame of who I am. They were always treating me just as the athlete that I am. They didn't think twice about my transgenderism and things of that sort. They treated me just like every other guy, which also played a big role into helping me continue my path into being, a nice, cohesive, and fluid transition into the male man that I am. So I also appreciate that a lot. But yeah, I would say mostly when I played football, it was just taxing of a mentality of trying to fit in and do all that jazz. Now, my senior year, as you guys know, I didn't get to play football because I had my top surgery that summer, the end of the summer. So, going into the fall, I was still recovering, and I, took that personal executive decision. But when wrestling came along, I was like, let me try this out. I had a coach that was really persuasive and really wanted me to try out, and he wants to help me become part of the varsity team. Which ended up happening, and this was the first time I actually, was able to take my shirt off. What I did not know about wrestling culture is that when you weigh in, you're basically booty naked. You're just in your underpants, basically. Underwear, I don't know why I said underpants. Trying to get fancy on you guys. But you're basically just in your underwear, and I was, mentally inside, I was frightened because I was like, I got my scars out. I don't know what people know. I mean, obviously, you guys see me on social media. I'm pretty open and out about being transgender, but still, when I go to outdoors and people like that, you never know how people are going to respect you or treat you and stuff like that. So when I did weigh-ins, I was like, I don't know how the person behind me feels about me, the person beside me. Do they even know what these scars represent? Yada, yada, yada. And also, on top of that, just insecurity of being in your own skin in front of everybody else. I'm short. At the time, I also have a faulty perception of my body, so I see myself as very scrawny. So I was like, I'm just overall not attractive, and I'm practically naked in front of you guys. But hey, I'm here. After going into the routine of that, I kind of got over that, especially with the wrestling team that I had at my school was very strong, very tight, very uplifting. Could not have asked for a better group of people. The person that actually trained me the most was a girl. So she was probably one of the most fiercest, strongest, and tactile person ever when it came to wrestling. So I was glad to have her, and it did not diminish my masculinity in any way, training with her, because she was a literal beast. So I appreciated that, and I also trained with other guys. Everyone was just on the same level. So I think seeing that complete cohesiveness, regardless of gender, really helped me a lot, especially because in wrestling, you get to go against people that are your actual size. The weigh-ins were very purposeful, and I think that was a better experience for me, because now I was able to go against someone my own size, my own height, my own whatever possible strength and stuff like that. So I actually flourished a lot in wrestling. And again, like I mentioned, it was my strongest feeling of liberation, being able to expose my top surgery scars and embrace who I am as a person. I really grinded out that entire season. I looked phenomenal. Wasn't ashamed who I was or who I am. I was really able to just embrace myself whole bodily. If that's a word, then that's what I'm saying. Woo! On top of that, yeah, it was just a great experience overall. I got to connect with these group of people a lot stronger and in a different spiritual way than I would have imagined. So I'm very grateful for that. And also when I was wrestling, I never really thought about the fact about how, I'm born biologically female. I'm at a disadvantage. When I'm wrestling, I don't know, since it's just a lot more intense than football, I just didn't have time to even feel sorry for myself. I was too busy worrying about my coach making sure that I was gonna stay on weight for the rest of the week. You know, that's where my focus was, and then making sure I got better every little second of the day. I feel like wrestling was very much a 24-hour sport, whereas football was like, you go to practice, you go to your game, you got your little rest time, practice game, practice game. Wrestling was like, there's no end, only a beginning. So that was very much needed for me. That type of discipline was mind changing for me, and I appreciated that a lot. Also, sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I was scared or insecure whenever I went to the locker room, because I'm like, oh, what if like someone just doesn't like me one day and they just want to straight up, you know, mess me up, jack me up or something. And but I also believe that's just part of my PTSD that I have. But I would say pretty much throughout my athletic experience, I was just very worrisome about my disadvantage, my physical disadvantage, also my height disadvantage. I remember when I started playing football, I wanted to be a wide receiver so bad. My favorite wide receiver was Randy Moss. But then after a while, not even after a while, after my first year or so, the coaches were just like, you're actually going to be a running back. We have a couple other guys lined up for a wide receiver that kind of fit that description a lot more. And I was never like that beyond phenomenal athlete in football either. So I was like, okay, I can respect that. There's people that have, that meet that criteria a lot more than I do and that fit that description. I can respect it. At first I didn't. I was like, what do y'all know? I have the most potential out here on this field, you know? But after a while, you humble yourself a little bit more and understand where they're coming from as coaches. They only want to do what's best for the team as well as for you. And I actually ended up thriving a lot more as a running back. So it worked out perfectly. So I am also very conscious of my height. I mean, not on a day-to-day type of scale, but like when it comes to sports. Currently in college, I'm doing rugby because my school did not offer football or wrestling, unfortunately. So this was when I spoke to the current president of the school. He was like, this is pretty much the happy medium for the sports that you played. So that's where I'm at currently. If you guys have any questions, any comments, or want me to have a certain take on another future segment for being trans and playing sports, please let me know. But as of right now, this was my experience playing sports. So I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I love you guys so much. Also, thank you for the support for the beautiful people we are, hoodies, shirts, and all that jazz. I'm actually coming out with some more Carolina blues, some more forest greens, and now I'm introducing more of like a chocolatey color, kind of similar to this one right here. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Love you guys. Deuces.